Unbelievable, how could two beloved stars fall from grace so tragically? In a shocking twist, two famous actors have confessed, unveiling the horrifying truth behind Vu Manh Long's death. What dark secrets drove them to such cruelty? And how deep does this scandal really go? Stay with Red Carpet Revealed as we uncover the untold story and explore the chilling reality behind the headlines. Unbelievable, how could two beloved stars fall so far, so fast? From idols adored by millions to confessed killers at the heart of a tragedy that horrified the world? That is the chilling question echoing across courtrooms, television screens, social media feeds after two famous actors admitted to murdering Vu Manh Long, a rising figure whose life ended in cruelty. The revelation was shocking enough. But what followed shook the public even more, a crime scene reenactment that played out like a nightmare in real time, leaving witnesses pale, families broken, unable to comprehend the reality of what they were watching. It was not a film, not fiction. A grotesque unveiling of horror behind the glittering mask of stardom. Vu Manh Long's name had been steadily climbing in the entertainment world, known for his charisma, ambition, and connections that hinted at a future filled with stardom and influence. To fans, he was a symbol of youth and possibility. To colleagues, he was both respected and envied. But behind the bright lights and magazine covers, there were whispers of rivals, of secrets, of dangerous knowledge he might have carried. No one, however, expected those whispers to end with his death. That his killers would be faces so familiar, so trusted. The betrayal stung deeper than the crime itself. When the case first surfaced, it seemed like another celebrity tragedy, one that would dominate headlines briefly before fading into memory. But everything changed when the actors confessed. The courtroom, packed with journalists and spectators, erupted into disbelief. The two figures, once symbols of glamour, bowed their heads and admitted to the unimaginable. Words replayed endlessly on television and online. Yes, we did it. It was a confession that sent shockwaves through every layer of society. Fans wept. Families despaired. Brands cut ties. The entire industry trembled. Yet the confession was not the end. To secure clarity for the trial, investigators demanded a reenactment of the crime. It was a decision that would scar everyone who witnessed it. The actors, handcuffed, were escorted to the scene of the killing. Their every step recorded by cameras. Their every motion scrutinized. With chilling calmness, they retraced how they cornered Long, how the argument escalated, and how the violence erupted. Witnesses described the moment as surreal, a collision of reality and performance that blurred into a grotesque spectacle. It was like watching a horror movie, one journalist reported. But the horror was real, and the actors were not playing roles, they were reliving their crime. The reenactment shocked not only the courtroom but the entire nation. Clips circulated online, fueling an inferno of outrage. The hashtags trended globally: justice for Long, actors turned killers, truth behind the curtain. Fans who once celebrated their idols now recoiled in disgust, some burning posters and merchandise in symbolic acts of anger. Shows dissected every second of the reenactment, while psychologists debated whether such a public display was necessary or simply another layer of cruelty. For Long's family, it was unbearable. Watching their son's final moments reenacted by his killers was described as a torment worse than grief itself. The confessions and reenactment opened floodgates of speculation. Why had two successful actors risked everything for violence? Their statements described disputes with Long, centered around money, contracts, and betrayals. But skeptics questioned the simplicity of that narrative. Was there more to the story? Did Long hold information so explosive that eliminating him became necessary? Rumors swirled that Long had evidence of corruption, secret dealings, scandals that could have toppled powerful names. If that were true, then his death was not merely a personal conflict but a calculated silencing. As journalists dug deeper, fragments of Long's final months emerged. Friends recalled him as anxious, speaking cryptically about danger. He had hinted at revelations that would change everything, carrying files and recordings he refused to share. Materials vanished after his death, adding a sinister layer to the case. Who took them? Were they destroyed? Or are they hidden, waiting to resurface? The mystery only deepened the public's obsession. Meanwhile, the perception of the actors shifted violently. Their past interviews, once charming, analyzed for hidden malice. Clips of roles where they played villains suddenly seemed prophetic. fueling endless conspiracy theories. Documentaries were quickly commissioned, promising to tell the true story behind the confessions. Tabloids branded them monsters in disguise. And yet, in the chaos, voices raised doubts. What if their confession was coerced? What if the reenactment was not truth but theater designed to bury deeper secrets? The entertainment industry felt the earthquake immediately. Agencies scrambled to contain damage, bending projects and erasing associations with the disgraced actors. Sponsorships collapsed overnight. The vision of glamour shattered, replaced by suspicion. If these stars could kill, what else was being hidden behind the curtain of fame? Producers whispered of other cover-ups, of scandals swept under the rug. The case was no longer just about Long's death, it was about an entire system built on silence and control. Through all this, the haunting image of the reenactment refused to fade. The cold, mechanical way the actors moved through the crime scene etched itself into collective memory. For many, it symbolized not only the cruelty of the crime but the cruelty of forcing society to watch, to confront horror as spectacle. Trauma disguised as justice. One commentator said, the cruelty lay not only in killing but in making the world witness the act twice, once in reality, once in reenactment. As draws to a close, the questions remain heavy in the air. Actors truly guilty? Or were they confessing for someone else? Was the reenactment a pursuit of truth? Grotesque performance designed to horrify and distract? And above all, what became of the horrifying truth Long allegedly carried with him to his grave? The answers, perhaps, not in the courtroom but in the unseen corridors of power where fame, money, and fear intersect. And as the world waits, terrified yet unable to look away, one thing is certain, the cruelty of this saga has only begun to reveal itself. The confessions and the horrifying reenactment had already turned the case into one of the most shocking scandals the entertainment world had ever seen. But as days turned into weeks, the story refused to settle. Instead, it unraveled further, each new revelation pulling society deeper into a labyrinth of suspicion, fear, and unanswered questions. The cruelty of the crime seemed only to expand, touching not just the victim's family, not just the confessed killers, but an entire culture built on stardom, secrecy, and power. In the aftermath of the reenactment, analysts began to question whether the truth had truly been revealed or whether the world had merely been fed a performance designed to horrify and silence. Legal experts noted inconsistencies between the actors' confessions and some forensic evidence. The timeline of events was muddled. The alleged weapon bore no fingerprints, and key surveillance footage had mysteriously disappeared. These gaps made many wonder, were the actors telling the whole truth? Or had they been pressured into creating a narrative that satisfied the public's thirst for horror while protecting others behind the scenes? The whispers of hidden forces only grew louder. Investigative journalists traced financial connections between the actors and shadowy figures in the industry, patrons, producers, and sponsors who wielded influence far beyond the red carpet. Suspicious transactions appeared in bank records, funds moving through offshore accounts at precisely the time Long was said to be preparing his revelations. It was as though money itself had conspired to erase him. Follow the money, one reporter urged, and you may find the real motive. Long's family, the ongoing circus of speculation was unbearable. They demanded clarity. Not just confessions, but answers to the questions that haunted them. Why was their son killed? Who ordered it? And what happened to the evidence he was rumored to hold? Their grief was magnified by the cruel necessity of watching the system play out. A system they increasingly distrusted. Lost our son twice, Long's father said in a televised interview. Once when he was killed, and again when his truth was buried. Public anger grew fiercer with each passing day. Demonstrations erupted outside courthouses and studios. Fans carried banners reading "Justice for Long" in truth, not theater. Social media campaigns refused to let the story die, collecting every statement, every leaked document. Yet as voices grew louder, so too did the efforts to silence them. Activists reported being followed. Online accounts disappeared. And journalists received anonymous threats. Of an invisible hand controlling the narrative only intensified the paranoia. The two actors, meanwhile, became ghostly figures of tragedy. Their careers, once dazzling, were reduced to ashes. Every endorsement gone. Every fan club dissolved. Every poster torn down. In uniforms. They were unrecognizable, no longer idols but outcasts. Yet even in disgrace, their confessions remained under scrutiny. Were they villains who had finally revealed their true selves? Or were they victims, forced into confession to shield the truly powerful? The cruelty of their fall from grace was mirrored by the cruelty of the doubts that lingered. As the trial stretched on, new evidence surfaced, encrypted files believed to have belonged to Long. The files hinted at contracts manipulated to exploit young artists, money funneled into illegal operations, connections between industry figures and political players. If authentic, these files prove that Long's death was more than a personal dispute. It was a silencing, a message to anyone who dared to speak against the hidden empire. But the files disappeared as quickly as they appeared, seized by authorities and never released to the public. Their vanishing became yet another ghost in the story. Proof, some believed, that the truth was never meant to be known. The psychological weight of the case began to show. Fans spoke of nightmares, unable to reconcile the beloved faces of their idols with the horrors described in court. Psychologists warned of a collective trauma. Society scarred by the collapse of illusion. We trusted them, one fan said tearfully. And they betrayed us in the worst way possible. Insisted the betrayal was bigger, that the industry itself had betrayed its audience by nurturing monsters and hiding truths. The cruelty lay not just in the murder, in the shattering of faith itself. As verdict day approached, anticipation built like a storm. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, the world waiting for justice. Yet when the gavel finally fell, declaring the actors guilty, the reaction was not relief but unease. The public had expected closure, but instead, it felt incomplete, unsatisfying. Though the real story remained untold. The actors were punished, yes, but the shadows they hinted at, the forces they might have been covering for, remained untouched. Justice, it seemed, served only in part. And so the case of Vu Manh Long transformed into something larger than itself. It was no longer just about a murder. It became a story about the cruelty of fame, the manipulation of truth, and the hidden machinery of power that operates behind the bright lights of celebrity. It became a cautionary tale, whispered with dread, that the faces we admire may hide unimaginable darkness, and that the stories we are told may be performances carefully crafted to keep us from seeing what lies beneath. The horrifying truth behind Vu Manh Long's death may never be fully known. The actors confessed. The reenactment horrified. The verdict was delivered, but the unanswered questions remain like ghosts. Everyone who followed the case. Was justice truly served? Or was the cruelty of this saga that the truth itself was murdered alongside Vu Manh Long? Red Carpet Revealed leaves you with this thought: sometimes the most terrifying story is not the one played out on stage or screen. One unfolding in shadows, where fame and power collide with cruelty. The saga of Vu Manh Long is not just about death, it is about the chilling reality that the truth can be buried deeper than any grave, hidden behind confessions, reenactments, and the glittering facade of celebrity.